there was a ship painted, and it was an art thing, and it was huge. I think it was one of those Atlantic ships that was painted, Dazzle pattern. It didn't click to me at the time. But I'm sure I knew it had blue and gray because those are favorite colors. So I'll have to check my, actually it's on my hard drive of my dead computer, but the photo of it to find out I can research it. But that's interesting about the Dazzle Patterns.
Kate? Was that
no,
recently?
2016, June 2016, but it was Leith, which is, well, it was separate at one time. To me, it's always separate Leith, but yeah, which was amazing. It was huge. And I think that's what it was. My other question for you, is, I'm curious to know how it was received out in Dartmouth and when you gave your talk. And did you meet any people that were somehow connected with the survivors of the, because I think you had this from, it came originally from a person, your relatives,
my grandmother,
right? Yeah. Did you meet anybody that?
You know, when I was doing some research early on, I went to the Maritime Museum, which has the Halifax explosion show, like permanent installation. It's excellent. And I talked to one of the curators there, and she told me that her grandfather still had some bill note. I forget what it was. Maybe were there $5 bills then? I'm not sure. That it had been in his pocket the day of the explosion.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, most of that generation's gone now, you know. But I certainly met lots of people who were very, you know, keen historians of the event, and including the curator at the gallery at Dalhousie, who's a total Lismer expert.
Why did you make Claire blind in one eye? Just because of the glass explosion, or because of with being an artist with one eye? Or?
All those things. All those things. Yeah, actually, like a lot of, quite often, I think, you know, you're writing and you make a secondary character who's much more interesting than your primary character. I think it's because we can take risks with our secondary characters. So when my first draft of the book, that was something that happened to a secondary character, and yet I had named the character Claire, and I had made her already going to art classes. And then I thought, well, it seems like losing the eye is such an important part of the concept of vision, you know, learning, like I said before, inner vision and outer vision. And of course, that was something that did happen to a lot of people. A lot of people were standing by windows watching the commotion going on down in the harbor, especially children. And the impact blew the windows in. And so lots of people had eye damage and lost eyes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I haven't read it, but it's on the top of my big heap of reading, which I'm getting to because I can't get library books out from town or here. So finally getting to my favorite collection, and it is in my, in my pile, along with, of course, this other wonderful book by some other author. I don't know who.
What is that?
The Last Island.
Oh, I don't see you. So
oh, sorry. Oh, you can't see me. Okay. But it is, I hope the puffins are doing okay.
Yeah, I haven't touched base with that story for a while, but yeah, that's another conversation for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure after I read it, I'll have more questions, but thank you for that today. It was really interesting.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Can I ask what your impression was of Maud Lewis's little house in the museum that I made sure that Denise went to see?
You know, I didn't see it.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, we were kind of on a tight timeline, and that was the one thing that I couldn't fit in.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Next time.
Yeah.
It's online.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, well, she's such a great folk artist.
Yes.
So, well, and you're an artist as well, so and writer.
Alison, I was going to ask, if I may, how do you see this book talking about the redemption of art? Art as a redeeming, healing thing.
That's a really good question, Trudy, because, you know, it really is it does literally heal the protagonist, Claire. because it helps her deal with these visions, which are medically induced, actually. And you know, it's funny. I mean, even as an artist, I find it hard to answer it succinctly because it's such a big question. And I remember, you know, when it was nominated for the Amazon first novel, and I went to Toronto for the big to-do about that, and I was interviewed by Sheila Rogers, and she said, "So tell me about beauty." And I was just floored, like, because, like, how do you answer that in a sentence? But it's somewhat related to your question. And I think that if I can expand out the answer, I think that beauty is really what gets us through the hard times, you know, and whether it's making things that are beautiful ourselves, which a lot of people have been turning to in isolation. Even, and I don't particularly draw much lines between high art and what some people would call craft. I think making is making, and we always strive to make things beautiful, and maybe that doesn't mean pretty. It means functional, or, you know, some other more complex form of beauty. But it's what we strive to do when we make something, and it is what we turn to just connect us to the flow of experience, and you know, treat our anxieties, and in the very simplest form, even just looking at something, some beautiful piece of art is somehow uplifting. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
It does. It gets to the spiritual sort of realm of how art connects us to our community and to ourselves.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I was thinking about this last year when I was doing a talk at the art gallery about being a writer and a painter. And I think what I realized is that words are more specific in their meaning, but art can hold many meanings. So, you know, when you look at something, it can say a lot of different things, and also depending on who looks at it. So, you know, as much as I love books and reading, I think they do operate a little differently as far as how we interact with them. So art can hold many meanings, and by doing that, it can hold many kinds of emotions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Alison, it's Melissa here. I'm wondering if you would say a few things, anything at all, about what you're working on now, and you can choose art or writing.
Oh, well, this has actually been, you know, despite the fact I know it's a very difficult time for a lot of people, it's actually been a really great time just for me to work. I'm working on both. I'm in my studio a lot. And yeah, I mean, doing lots of different kinds of work, mainly canvases, but I'm also working on another novel, actually contemporary novel set in the Great Bear Rainforest. And so it's about, the themes are kind of generation and regeneration, and also black and white and the in-between places in lots of different ways, if that makes sense.
Oh, can't wait. Do you, since you said you're working in two arenas right now, or two media, is there a relationship between what goes on in one and what goes on in the other?
You know, that's a good question, Melissa, and that's partly what I was kind of trying to think about when I gave this talk at the gallery last year. I think for a lot of artists, there is a really strong connection. My paintings aren't really paintings of ideas. So, you know, my work isn't very conceptual. I'm really just trying to make something beautiful most of the time, and trying to do as well as I can with the materials, and, you know, all the challenges of art, which are, you know, form and line and composition and color and value. But I think that there might be some sort of more unconscious connection between the two. For instance, the years that I was doing a lot of abstract painting, I was writing a lot of poetry, and I think that the kind of abstraction of poetry, the abstraction of the painting at that period of time, were really kind of talking to each other in some way that is, you know, more like an underground kind of connection.
Right, right. Well, thank you.
Okay, well, unless there's any other questions, thank you so much for coming today. It's been fun for me to revisit this material, and also to think about it in terms of, you know, what we're going through right now, which is probably one of the most socially, what would you call it, disruptive phases of you know, of our times, and mainly, you know, and that's perhaps why people compare it to what other generations have undergone with in wartime.
Yes.
Yeah.